good Monday morning. Hope you had a great weekend. Start of another big sports week in New York. We've got Monday Night Football tonight with the Giants and the Cowboys. We've still got the Aaron Judge home run chase. We still have the NL East that has been not determined yet, with the Braves and the Mets battling it out. The Mets with a 1.5 lead as we sit here today. And we have the Jets once again embarrassing themselves at home. Everybody who gets in their car, gets on a bus, shows up, tailgates, buys their tickets, their PSLs, their food, watches their team get their teeth kicked in at home. I mean, they never win at home. Most of the time they get embarrassed. This was another one of those games. And right now, with what I've seen from Rob Saleh for most of his Jets career outside of what happened in a miracle win over the Browns, I can't take this coaching staff seriously. I can't. Undisciplined. You got players screaming in the assistant coaches' faces. The decisions that they make, they can't stop anybody to getting for Joe Flacco. I understand they got 2 terrible tackles, but my God, make an adjustment. Just ugly, ugly, ugly football yesterday at MetLife Stadium, something we've grown accustomed to. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. I want to echo what you're saying, and I want to say that usually a coaching staff is reflected by the penalties that players are taking. And, yes, when you're losing and you're yelling at each other on the sideline, it looks really bad. And I think Quentin Williams probably had a point. Like, stop blitzing, let us handle it, and then let everybody else, stay back in coverage. I think that's what the argument was about. But it was, for the fan, especially coming off of last week, I tried to put myself in that fan's seat yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I think that there was a genuine excitement that maybe they could get to 2-1 before Zach Wilson gets back. And it was, it's just your normal, ugly Jet football at home. That's what it was, and that's what it has been since Rob Saleh has gotten here. And, Rob came in with high hopes. He came in with the great resume. He's been through a lot with a lot of different head coaches. And, there's a thing, we said this when he first started here, and we asked him how he motivates the players. And he doesn't motivate the players the way that, say, a Brian Daboll may get in the face of somebody. He doesn't motivate the players the way that Bill Belichick does and intimidates them. He doesn't motivate the players the way Bill Parcells did. And I know that this is a different time, a different era, and the players are different, and it's more player empowerment than ever before. But, it can't be Camp Country Club. And that's the feel of it, especially when you lose games and you have the amount of undisciplined penalties that seemed to derail the Jets just when you thought maybe they would be able to get some control of the game.
Well, obviously, the biggest moment in the game was the Franklin Myers roughing the passer on Joe Burrow. Not only does he push him down to the ground after the release of the ball, but then he lands on top of him. And that was as egregious as humanly possible. But then the thing that happened after that is even scarier to me, as Jordan Whitehead, who is one of the free agent signings for the Jets that everybody was excited about. We talked to him at training camp. Tyler Boyd catches the ball. Jordan Whitehead gives this half-ass effort in trying to tackle him. Boyd bounces off of him, and then he basically jogs behind Tyler Boyd and doesn't even try to tackle him before he goes into the end zone. And that right there was a football game. And both of those things to me, and I know it's ultimately up to the players, but both of those things to me fall at the feet of the coach. The undisciplined nature and having guys lollygagging around in the secondary, because you know what? If there was a coach that held players accountable and you know that you were going to see that on film on Monday and your coach was going to rip you apart for it, you wouldn't be playing football like that. Now, I don't know if Jordan Whitehead's hurt. I don't know what's going on, but that was just completely unacceptable to see Tyler Boyd, who's not like a gigantic – this isn't Derrick Henry, by the way. This isn't Jerome Bettis in his prime. Tyler Boyd's a good football player. He bounces right off of him because he wasn't even trying. It's just – and I look at in all the shots of the crowd yesterday, you just – I mean, you feel bad for these fans because they were jacked up because you're thinking, okay, you beat the Bengals last year. The Bengals have been terrible so far this year. Joe Flacco had a throwback day. You're back home. Maybe you could put something together and win this football game. And I didn't expect the Jets to just go out there and beat the brakes off the Bengals. I understand that the Bengals getting to 0-3 was probably an impossibility with how good they are. But be competitive. Be competitive for 4 quarters. Look like a professional football team at home.
If they don't commit the dopey penalties, the game would have been closer. And they're also settling for field goals as opposed to scoring touchdowns, as opposed to the Bengals scoring touchdowns. I have to tell you that right around halftime, I was like, man, this is
it's terrible.
It's hard to watch.
Yep. It
really was hard to watch, especially with all the other games going on and how close some of the other games were.
Sure.
And you just felt like at halftime, we were talking to each other, and I'm like, man, they just don't have a chance in this game. I never felt like they ever, even though they were within like 1 or 2 scores, and they were moving the ball, and then all of a sudden another penalty would happen, and they would back up again. That was the frustrating part of it. I would think for most Jet fans, like there was no life. Like the fan is trying to bring life to the team.
Yeah.
And the team is not responding to it. And this team should be responding to it. Now, you did say something that is you could just say make adjustments. It's hard to make adjustments when you're playing with players in certain positions and very important positions, meaning offensive line positions, where the only adjustment that you can make as an offensive coordinator when you have your third left tackle playing is you either have to put a tight end over there or you have to send a back over there to help and not let the defensive end, Hendrickson in this case, just basically run rampant over the entire offense, which is basically what was happening at very inopportune times for Joe Flacco in that offense.
Well, I mean, that seems to me now, obviously you're going to know better than me in this situation, but that seems to me to be something that when you see that this Connor McDermott, who you just signed, and I understand you got a ton of injuries, and Fant leaves the game, and you got McDermott at left tackle, and you got Max Mitchell at right tackle, and it's not ideal. But when you're seeing Hendrickson just dominate, and you've got Connor McDermott as a turnstile in that situation, and you still are leaving him out there by himself on a 4th and 4, and he runs around Connor McDermott like a traffic cone and then hits Joe Flacco and knocks the ball out. I'm sorry. I mean, because we've just seen it for the last quarter and a half. I mean, in that situation, do something about it.
So the adjustment would be to have either a tight end over there or you'd send a back over there just to try to slow him down.
Yeah.
Just so he doesn't get back there, too quickly. And that's where the rub comes in when you're actually trying to coach a game in the middle of the game and what happens to you. Now, I'll tell you what, if it's this way and they're going to Pittsburgh next week, and the thing about Pittsburgh is that they run this 34 defense, and it is confusing. And when you have guys out there that aren't supposed to be the guys that are out there, you run into a lot of problems. You run into a lot of communication problems. It may be smart holding Zach Wilson back a week, but I'm sure the Jet fan wants that guy out on the field and wants to see what he has to offer.
Well, especially with Flacco looking like he did in week 1 yesterday. Now, he was really, really good in week 2. You can't take that away from him. He was great in that game when the Jets needed it, especially in crunch time. But he was again,
they don't
awful.
Have a chance. They don't have
they just right. I know they don't have a chance when you got injuries and everything else, but I mean, because he can't move is part of the problem.
I know. I'm just telling you, he doesn't have a chance. Doesn't have a chance.
Yeah, Zach Wilson just has to. If Zach Wilson comes back and looks overwhelmed again, it's just going to be a kick to the groin for the Jet fan. It just is. Because, they've had it. Like, patience is not a word that they want to hear any longer. And right now the coach is right on. I don't think he's going to be let go at the end of this year, but he's definitely on a hot seat with the stuff that he talked about with the receipts and everything else and the fact that he can't win any games. I mean, it's tough right now to take this team seriously. It is. And we were positive about them going into the year. Really like what we saw from Zach Wilson in training camp, like the draft, like the offseason. And it's just the first couple of weeks. It's been ugly again.
This has been from the day that Zach Wilson got hurt against the Philadelphia Eagles in training camp to the Mekhi Becton injury to, all the different variations of what their offensive line looks like. Now we're back to square one again.
Yeah.
Where you have guys that you thought you've drafted, guys that you thought were going to come in here and were going to be stalwarts, and that we're going to be able to play like a Tristan Wirfs or an Andrew Thomas. That hasn't happened for the Jets. So that is a big problem for them, a huge problem for them. And it's going to be an even bigger problem come this week against these, the Steelers. The only thing that they got going for them is TJ Watt's not playing.
Joe Flacco has played a ton of games at Heinz Field, and I don't want to see Joe Flacco anymore. I don't. I want to see Zach Wilson, and I'm not saying that they should play Joe Flacco, but I would not be surprised if they found a way to get Joe Flacco back on the field against the Pittsburgh Steelers because they were scared to put Zach in that situation on the road against the Steelers. I have a feeling that he might play. Now, I know Flacco is terrible, and you're thinking this is a great time, because we talked about this. You mentioned it a ton of times. This is a great time coming off, when you go on after a comedian that bombs, it's like, this is when I want to be in there.
It's kind of like it's open now for Zach Wilson to come in and try to ignite the team and spark the team. And, it wasn't like they were 3-0 and Joe was throwing for 400 yards a game and they were putting up 30 points a game.
Right, so there's no quarterback controversy.
No.
He could step in. Everybody wants to see him. But you talk about the offensive line and the shambles that it's in on the road, Steelers, 3-4, all these things that you're talking about. I would not be surprised if the Jet coaching staff found a way, because they've got this sick comfort in Joe Flacco of throwing him out there again for another game.
The other thing that really bothers me is, the Jamar Chase touchdown where he's wide open.
Oh, God.
Okay, so there's a miscommunication. I think it was Joyner. It's probably his fault. I'm not really sure. It's one of those safeties who was directing traffic and then ran away from the play. And on that play, Joe Burrow gets drilled. I mean, that's how close they were to blowing that play up. And was just one player makes a bonehead play and decision and decides not to be where he's supposed to be. And I think Charles Davis was correctly assessing what he thought had happened. And, there's usually I think that's who it was.
Iron Eagle Charles Davis.
Right. So there's a defensive call, and anybody who's ever played football probably has heard it 1,000 times. And it's called banjo. And the banjo call is a call. If the guy goes out, you got him. If the guy comes in, I got him. And the guy went in, and the guy that was supposed to have him when he went in, I don't know what he was doing. He ran away from him. And at the same time that play is happening, Joe Burrow is getting drilled. And he throws the ball end over end almost, and there's a wide open Jamar Chase for an easy touchdown. That is a blown assignment at the most important part of the game. And who is that fall back to? It falls back to the coaches teaching defense or teaching the offense. I can understand where there's a guy that's going to get overwhelmed because he's not supposed to be out there and he's going against a great pass rusher. I can kind of understand that, because you have no other choice. You don't have anybody else to put out there. But in this case, where this defense is supposed to be better, they can't make blown assignments like that.
And another big problem is not, you say they're close, not close enough to getting to Joe Burrow all day long. The Bengals gave up a ton of sacks last year. They were at the top of the league. They've given up a ton of sacks this year. They're at the top of the league. The Jets could not get to him all day long. And if you really want to break down a major discrepancy between these two teams yesterday that really was the difference in the game, turnovers as well, but this has something to do with the turnovers.
But why did turnovers happen? Right.
Because pressure on the quarterback.
Right.
Was the fact that the Jets couldn't get to Joe Burrow and the Bengals defensive line was all over Joe Flacco. I mean, that was it right there. I mean, and it's just amazing that this offensive line for the Bengals has been just roasted by their fans and people in the NFL.
I don't think that they haven't heard it.
Sure.
Of course they've heard it.
But they couldn't get to him at all yesterday?
Well, they do have the left guard for the Bengals is the rough spot, because that's where their rookie is, and he had a rough day again yesterday. But the other four guys are all seasoned veterans who now, for the last 2 weeks, you wouldn't know this because we're not living in Cincinnati, but I know it because I have ties to Cincinnati. They've been killing them out there.
Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely roasting them. And then, Joe Burrow probably said, hey, look, I'll do my job to get rid of the ball a lot quicker. and therefore we won't take as many sacks.
That's what he was doing right off the bat.
And he needed to do that.
Right. All right, it's Boomer and Gio on the fan.
I will say one thing, though, man. The Jet fan has had it with this coaching staff already.
Well, I mean,
the amount of text messages that I was getting yesterday from my Jet fan friends, guys that went to the game yesterday, I mean, this coaching staff is going to hear it. It's turned now.
No, of course.
It's turned. It is completely turned. It is now all on the shoulders of Zach Wilson to rescue this coaching staff. I hate to say
and the general manager, by the way.
I hate to say it, but it's true. It is now the perception has completely flipped.
Boomer and Gio on the fan and CBS Sports Network, just getting started on this Monday morning. A ton to get to, including the Aaron Judge home run chase, Jerry Recco's update with all that info coming up just a couple of minutes. The new era of Thursday Night Football is here, and it's only on Prime Video this Thursday, too. The NFL's biggest talents face off when Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins head to Cincinnati to take on Joe Burrow and the defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. Pre-game coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with TNF tonight, delivered by Little Caesars live from Cincinnati. Not an Amazon Prime member, sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game. It's the Dolphins and the Bengals, only on Prime Video. See Amazon.com/watchtnf for details.
All righty, football season is underway, so now is the perfect time to download FanDuel. That would be America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's free bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just sign up with promo code Boomer. We all love the app around here. FanDuel is your favorite bets, from the money line of point spreads to player props. You can combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. With live betting, you're going to get updated odds on games that have already started, and when you do win, you're going to get paid fast, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So sign up today with promo code Boomer for your no-sweat first bet. That's promo code Boomer, and you can make every moment more this season with FanDuel, who are the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 and older, physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as the non-withdrawable free bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions to apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.